Welcome to this week's episode of Eye on the Tigers. I'm Delaney Barrow, joined by Andy Hewling. And it's a new year, new sports season. Winter sports are in full swing, with spring sports rapidly approaching around the corner. Without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we have volleyball. Volleyball was supposed to finish its second half of its season that it started in the fall with 8 more matches this spring, but per COVID guidelines by the university and the SEC, Auburn decided to cancel this season. Andy, how do you think this decision is going to affect how they play in the fall?
For sure, I think it's really tough that Auburn was unable to play the spring season due to those injuries and the COVID guidelines that the university and the SEC has for athletics. They didn't have enough people to make their roster. But I think, it's going to give Coach Crouch the opportunity to go out and recruit and to get new talent to the Plains. And it'll give him a chance to maybe, get some more players that, he will get to recruit and not the ones that were already there at the program. So I think it'll give him some motivation, but obviously not what he wanted coming into the spring season.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about recruitment, and I think that needs to be a huge focus because the team has some talented seniors that they're going to be losing. And I know that a lot of them were looking forward to this fall season and once again playing again because it is still Brent Crouch's first year, and they won a set last season, but they didn't win a full match. And so I think that they're going to be a lot to improve upon. And at the same time, I think they can take advantage of this. And while it is disappointing with the opt-outs and the injuries, it was in line with the university's guidelines and their policies and their beliefs of just protecting the student athletes. And I think that they're really going to be looking to show out this fall and prove that they are better and they are not the same team that they were this previous fall. Next up, we have gymnastics. Gymnastics has lost their first 3 meets, and today's meet that was supposed to be against LSU has been postponed due to COVID cases within the LSU program. Andy, what was the main thing you noticed in gymnastics' first 3 meets this year?
I really thought that, despite losing, obviously you want to win as a team, but it doesn't always matter in gymnastics. You want to get a high score, and I think that's what Auburn did well, is getting up in the 140s. I think that's a good spot for Auburn to be. Darian Goborn and Drew Watson, of course, are really the leaders on that team, and they've shown well and done really well on their performances on the floor. And then also Goborn's done really well on the beam. I think she's had some good performances. 9-7 at Alabama. I think that was something that really impressed me, is that she's continuing her good year after last season's great performances. So good to see from them. Obviously you want to win, so hopefully they're able to get some W's under their belt.
You did mention 2 of their very talented veteran players, Darian Goborn and Drew Watson, but a lot of this season I think is going to come down to the freshmen. I think this is a young team, and like you said, it's about the points. It's not necessarily about the winning. And as long as they can just continue to prove, and I know Coach Jeff Graba's one of his main philosophies is just practice how you're going to perform and making sure that how well they perform in practice, they're able to bring to those actual meets. And I think that that's going to be key. And they have put up really good numbers. They lost in a close one last week against Alabama, but they will be back in action February 12th against Missouri. So it's another away meet for them, but I think that this extra week off that they have, actually 2 weeks, I think that they're really going to be looking to improve and build upon their previous performances. Next up, we have women's basketball. The women's basketball team faced Texas A&M last night. They hosted them at home. They were close for the first 3 quarters, but then they just kind of slipped away in the fourth, and Texas A&M walked away with a pretty solid victory. Andy, what do you think the Tigers need to take away from last night in order to keep fighting and be able to hang in there with the Razorbacks on Sunday?
For sure. I think, really, Coach Flo's teams have always been a gritty bunch. They've really fought hard and, kept it close with opponents that normally would probably beat them by double digits. But I just think, right now they just need to focus on finishing games and just, especially in the fourth quarter, I think it seems to be a real big problem for them. Because, like you said, they were in this game. I mean, I thought they played really well in the third. They were able to make an 8-2 run there to kind of cut it back to just 1 point. But it's just right at the end, I think it was just A&M just took advantage of turnovers and just poor play from Auburn. And I think that's just something that they got to work on, is kind of finishing down the stretch.
I agree. Finishing is going to be key. And I also think that starting hot is going to be important because last night, neither team really could make any of their shots. And I think Auburn picked it up a little bit before Texas A&M did, which gave them an advantage. But also last night, those defensive stops really came into play. And a bright spot for the Tigers was Elena Rice. She got her start yesterday. She scored a season-high points in a game. And I think that, this is a fairly versatile team. They continually rotate the starting lineups. And only a few players have started every single game this year. And I think that the ability to finally set in stone a solid starting roster is going to really become important as they get closer and deeper into SEC play. But they will be back in action Sunday when they travel to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks. Finally, we have men's basketball. The team started out slow, but now that Sharif Cooper's back, they're really putting on the competition and giving some teams a run for their money. Andy, they had a really impressive win against number 12 Missouri on Tuesday. What was your main takeaway from that matchup?
Well, I thought Auburn did a good job of forcing turnovers. Missouri, they're a big bunch, and I think, Drew Smith and Pinson were really the keys for Missouri to win, but they were cold. They shot very poorly in the first half. Auburn had 14 blocks in the game, and I thought Babatunde Akínbọ́lá, he has impressed me. He's really improved his game. Obviously, still ball handling and scoring may be an issue for him, but defensively, he's very solid. He blocked 48% of their shots in the first half, and I thought that was a very impressive stat from him. Shows how much he and Thor and Dylan Cardwell have really improved down low defensively. And, if they can transition that into offense, into scoring, that's going to be really key for those three guys. But I thought, obviously, we've talked about it. How good is Sharif Cooper? He's so good. He can find the man for alley-oops, for passes. He's like an assist king. And I think, he's the key to Auburn, and he basically drives the whole truck and bus that is Auburn basketball.
Cooper really has been key for the Tigers ever since he started playing. They've been 4-2, which is really great considering their not amazing start. But, Cooper on Tuesday really showed out. He had 28 points, and 21 of those came in the second half to really shut down the opposing Tigers. And, the bench also came to play. Auburn's bench has a lot of depth, and I think that will prove key in their future matchups. And you mentioned some other big-name players like Dylan Cardwell, Babatunde Akínbọ́lá, and one name that I would love to see play on Saturday is Justin Powell, but he is still game-to-game with a head injury. So hopefully he'll be able to play since he hasn't been able to play with Cooper yet since he's been cleared. But speaking of Saturday, Auburn will travel to Baylor in the SEC Big 12 showdown. So what do you think the key for the Tigers will be if they want to hang in there with the Bears?
Well, Baylor is coming off a very impressive win where they scored 107 points on K-State, and I think, they're undefeated. They're really rolling right now, and I think when you look at college basketball, there's like Gonzaga, Baylor, and then a gulf between everyone else, and I think, Auburn's got to come in there and not be afraid. I think Sharif's going to play well. I think we're guaranteed that, but the other guys have to step up. Auburn's got to play defense like they did against Missouri, and they've got to just control the rim. I think, they're going to take advantage of deep shooting. That's what they like to do. They have great shooters like Jared Butler and Mitchell. I think they do a really good job of that, but Auburn's got to control the paint. They have to play defense there.
Yeah, you mentioned Cooper coming to play, and after Tuesday's game in the press conference, he was talking about how much he loves those big games and the ability to just have fun there. And I think that's going to be key, not going in there afraid, just showing up and showing out. And I think that you mentioned Mitchell and Butler, and Davion Mitchell actually was the point guard for Auburn before Jared Harper got starting role, and then he transferred. So I think that he's going to come ready to play with some fire. But I think it's going to be a really good matchup, and I think that if Auburn just treats this as any old opponent, don't dwell too hard on it, just come and play their best, and hopefully everybody will be cleared from injuries. But I think that they have potential to upset Baylor, and even if they don't win, they could really give them a run for their money. And as long as it's a good game, I think that, like you said, there's Gonzaga, there's Baylor, and then there's a huge gulf. And I think being able to hang with that number 2 undefeated team that has beat almost every single one of their opponents by almost 20 points, I think that that's a really impressive feat. And I think the Tigers are going to be looking to have some fun this weekend. But which player do you have your eye on in this matchup?
I really have my eye on Alan Flanagan. Like, we talked about Sharif being the guy to watch, but I mean, Alan Flanagan is kind of the backup point guard role right now that Justin Powell isn't there. And I think, he carries the load that Sharif doesn't while he's on the bench. And I think, Flanagan's ball handling has been suspect at times, but if he steps up, he's a good player. He can make good drives to the basket. He can shoot the three. I mean, we've seen him pull up from deep range before and make shots. So I think he is the key for Auburn. He's the only way that they're going to stay in this game besides Sharif Cooper.
I think Flanagan is going to really be key this weekend, but I also think Jalen Williams, he's really been doing great just coming off the game and starting strong. And I think that he's earned his spot. He has come to play and proven himself again and again. He's second or third in the team in scoring. And I think that if he comes to play like he has been, and he's just been steadily improving, and that momentum should really help him stand out in Saturday's matchup. For our final segment, we have our pick'ems. This season, we're doing basketball. So first we have Tennessee, Kansas. Who do you have?
I like Tennessee in this game. I think, Tennessee, they've had an up and down season. They usually do. Rick Barnes is a good coach, but I think Kansas, though, has been really underwhelming this season. So I'm going to go with Tennessee in this game. I think it'll be close, competitive, but I think Tennessee will be looking to get revenge after losing to Kansas last time.
I don't think Kansas is going to be able to stop Tennessee, especially at home in Knoxville. Kansas has not been performing as well in their road games, and so I think that that's going to continue to play a factor. And like you said, Tennessee has had an up and down season per usual, but I think that they're going to be able to get Kansas with this slight upset. Next up, we have Oklahoma, Alabama. Who do you have?
I like Oklahoma in this game. I think a lot of people are looking at Alabama as the favorite in this game, but Oklahoma just went in and beat Texas on the road, and I thought that was really impressive. And I think they're going to do it at home against Alabama. See, look, Alabama is a good team. I think they played really well against Auburn. They've had a great season. But I just don't think that they've played the opponent like Oklahoma or Texas in the Big 12 that's really going to push them and going to guard their shooting. I think just when you look at Alabama, they rely on the three so much. And I think Oklahoma's not going to give them that. And I think the Sooners are going to pull off the upset.
I'm going to have to go with Alabama on this one. They're undefeated in conference play. Obviously, this isn't the same SEC conference as it has been in previous years talent-wise, but I still think they're a really impressive team, as much as it pains me to say. But, I mean, they really performed well against Auburn, and Auburn tried to hang in there, but Alabama just proved they are a very talented team, and I think that they're a team to watch even going into the postseason this year. And so I think that they're going to continue to try to live up to those words of praise, and I think that they're going to get the win over Oklahoma. For our last college matchup, we have Auburn at Baylor. Andy, who do you have?
I've got to go with Baylor in this game. I think Auburn will come out and they will test them early, but I think the Baylor Bears are just going to be too much for this Auburn team. I think given another year, maybe next year, if Auburn were playing Baylor again, I think it'd be a whole lot closer. But this year, Auburn's just young. I think they still have a lot to learn. Sharif Cooper, like we said, he's going to have a good game. I think he's going to keep Auburn in it. But I see Baylor winning this one in kind of a one-sided contest.
I have to agree. I think that Baylor is going to beat Auburn, and I think that Auburn does have the chance to hang in there, but Baylor has just such a talented roster, and I think that Auburn, they have to do everything right. There can be no mistakes. They have to limit their turnovers especially in order to remain close. And I mean, if Justin Powell gets cleared for this game, I think that they have even more of a chance to hang with them. But if he doesn't, I think that it's going to be much more lopsided than the Tigers would like it to be. Now for our NBA matchups. First up, we have Spurs versus Grizzlies. Who do you have?
Got to go with the Grizzlies in this game. I think Ja Morant is the difference. I think the Grizzlies are really improving this year. They're kind of one of those middle-of-the-road teams that are going to give people a scare this season.
I have to go with the Spurs. They won their last matchup against the Grizzlies, and I think that they're just going to be riding on that, even though it was a couple months ago. But I think that, like you said, Ja Morant on the Grizzlies is going to be a difference maker for the team, but I do think that the Spurs are going to get this win. Next up, we have Lakers versus Celtics. Who do you have?
historic rivalry here. I think, there's always a lot of bad blood between these two sides. I'm going to go with the Lakers in this game. I think LeBron James has just been on fire, especially the other night. He scored 46 points against Cleveland. He's in top form right now. And I think between him, Caruso, Caldwell Pope, I think they're going to be too much for the Celtics.
I'm going to go with the Celtics on this one. I think the Celtics are really starting to roll, and they have some really talented players in Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. And rookie Peyton Pritchard started out the season really strong, but unfortunately he will be out with a knee injury. And if he were to be playing, I would say this would be a more divisive win. But I do think that LeBron and the rest of the Lakers are going to make this a very hard matchup. So I think it's going to be a good game to watch, but I'm going to still go with the Celtics. Next up, we have Jazz versus Nuggets. Who do you have?
I got the Jazz in this game. I think, they're really rolling right now. I like Jokic. He's just been such a great player for them. Really, really a talented team. I think they're going to win.
I'm going to have to go with the Jazz. I think that, Donovan Mitchell out with concussion injury. He's game to game. I think that without them, the Jazz shouldn't have too much of an issue overcoming the Nuggets, but I do think that it will be an interesting matchup. The Jazz are just now finding their stride, and I know that the Nuggets have had a couple of games postponed because of COVID, but I think that the Jazz are going to come out of this one victorious. For our last NBA matchup, we have 76ers versus Pacers. Who do you have?
I got to go with the 76ers in this game. I think Ben Simmons is going to be the difference. Obviously, 76ers are having kind of an up and down season. It's been really tough for them, but I think they're going to get the win here.
I, too, think the 76ers are going to get this win. I don't think the Pacers are quite at their level yet. You mentioned Simmons. I think that he has been a leader on the team, very fun to watch. Unfortunately, Joel Embiid is injured, and so he will most likely not be playing. But that dynamic duo, once they're both healthy, I think that they're going to really wreak some havoc the rest of the season. But I think until Embiid is back, I think that Simmons is going to be able to continue to carry the 76ers to victory over the Pacers. That's all we have for you this week. For more news and sports updates, check our website at eagleeyetv.com or our Twitter at EETV_sports. That's all from us. Have a great weekend and War Eagle.